Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
The Creole Seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole Seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy, you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, you tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Welcome to episode 144 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetic to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studio, sending a signal live to KSWH 430 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer and the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. We have standing in none other than Neely from the pregame show.
You got it.
Many of you all know him by now as he gives it to you. In fact, he has my inverted fro. I think he got me beat a little bit. I like it, man. It's a nice look.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Doing good, Doc. Doing good. A pleasure to be here. I know I could never fill the shoes of Washington, but we'll do the best we can this fine evening with you and my right-hand man, Charles Bishop.
No doubt about it. You'll do just fine. You do just fine with that. Charles, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Dr. DeVille, doing well. It's raining right now, you know. Can't get that old golf game in today, but, you know, on the sports lab with you here and enjoying, you know, a little bit of an off season with regards to HBCU sports, but in reality, there's never really an off season. So much always to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that. When you talk about it, Neely, you know he's feeling bad if he can't get his golf game in.
He's in the house breaking lamps in that backswing. I know he's still playing with those clubs.
Yeah, and I ain't gonna tell him about the pregame stuff, you know, where as he may have decided he's gonna wear a coat or not, you know, he's ready. Big time. And they go in there. I don't understand it. Take zip up, take zip down. I'm like, dude, what you doing? Man, you know, I just got to look the part. Man, that's what you have when you got these big time stars. I know you work with him too, so I know you got some stories.
Yeah. Man, I got a lot of those stories.
Tell us one of the good stories. Tease us out with one of those good stories. Let the people know the true side.
Well, it kind of ties into the one you just told. You know, we were getting ready this spring and this historic spring season as it related to COVID, but also double historic for Jackson State University as we're kicking off the prime era. So we were sitting down, I think it was getting ready for that February 21st game, and we were deciding what we were going to wear for the pregame show, the inaugural live broadcast. And Chuck said, I think, and I cut him off right there, Doc. I said, Chuck, we're not wearing no sport coats.
Oh my God. You know us that you holding back because you know we go. That's one of the debates. Who has the best sports coat?
Yeah.
So that one I'm gonna say is not his fault. So I'm glad you made him calm down a little bit.
Well, he agreed to save it for this fall season. So if you look at the pregame show this fall, you might see us in some matching pregame show sport coats designed by Charles Bishop.
He gonna have that sports coat style going, you know, prep them up a little bit. But with everybody out there, today's episode of Inside HBCU Sports is sponsored by THC Agency LLC. THC Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Let's jump right into it, guys. One of the things out there, HBCU game day, Steve Gaither, I love what he's able to bring to the table in a lot of ways. And he got us with a good one this week. I have my perspective, but I really want to get into the dialogue. I want the people out there to talk to us and give us a shout out. So let me do that a little bit. James Walter Hill Jr., Ricky Burton. James is on here checking us out. George Suggs is always in the house representing the A&T Aggies out there. Jalen Riley, Lonnie Shaw, another one out there. Aggie Pride, man, they just counted down. A.D. Drew always represents and giving us some love behind the scene with the camera work today. Anthony Johnson. Cavill is the boss, man. That's pretty nice, man. I'll take that one. You can chime in anytime, Anthony. Keep them coming. I like that. Chuck Hunt getting it down. Daryl Terrell's on here. Michael Ford, Kate Johnson gets us much love. She's always in the house representing DI Love in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. Like she says, good evening. Time for the lecture 144. Boy, that number sounds good, man. We bring it. LaShawn Harris. So y'all keep it coming. Keep us live. With that, let's get into it. The SWAC and FAMU. Who needed it? Who needed who? Was the question of the day. Steve Gaither put it out there and got the internet abuzz, social media just clamoring. I want to get from you all's perspective. Let me start with, I guess, Neely. I know you're going to bring it in a different manner and just set things on fire the way you do it. Let me ask you that question. Is there an answer to that? Is there a correct answer to that? And feel free. You don't have to be politically correct. You can go in from a business perspective, any direction you want. How would you answer that question?
Well, I'm going to, Doc, I appreciate that latitude. I'm going to take it from a Lynch Street perspective. As a long stay and a staple in the SWAC, I would have to say that I certainly didn't need them. We have been here in the SWAC and had some decades, not years, but decades of dominance and been doing well. And so just from that sign of it, it's hard to say that, oh man, we as in Jackson State University or the SWAC as a whole needed them to go up. But I do think there's perhaps more credibility that they needed a place to land with all the uncertain times in the MEAC for them to be able to come to the SWAC and get a foothold and bring their historic program, taking nothing away from them, from their individual capacity. It certainly adds flair to the SWAC brand. But the SWAC was doing fine without a FAMU, without a Bethune-Cookman. But this certainly adds value to those two programs, juxtaposed to where they're coming from in the current situation over there.
No doubt about it. Interesting perspective, ministry, as he said. Charles, what you say?
I think when you take a look at it for me, it's a push in terms of the SWAC gaining a historic brand like Florida A&M. When you talk about the history of Florida A&M, you're talking about Jay Gaither, Rudy Hubbard. I mean, so many players that have come through Florida A&M, Bully Bob Hayes, Ken Riley. But I think it enhances the brand that is the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Like Leah said, I think you can speak for a lot of SWAC fans. They pretty much kind of have the same attitude. Well, we didn't exactly need Florida A&M. I mean, we are Jackson State, we are Grambling, we are Southern. That's enough unto itself. That's enough swagger for an entire conference. But you keep going around the conference. Alabama A&M, they've gained a foothold. Alabama State fans, they have the prettiest stadium in their minds, as well as their own SWAC history. Prairie View, Texas Southern. So I think a lot of the braggadocio around the Southwestern Athletic Conference is, did we actually need them? But I think it is going to be a great marriage of both brands when you take a look at everything Florida A&M brings to the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And they bring their own swagger, their own fan base that has not been afraid. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, they mix it up with everybody. So I think it's going to be a marriage that everybody's going to get some benefit from.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. I like that. You can tell Professor Bishop has taken and went to school in the Southern University, Dr. Ville's design program, if you would, if you allow me to take a little bit of that liberally in terms of that Master's of Science in Sports Studies, Sports Leadership. He dipped all of that in there to come around with that framework. Let me say what the people say. A.D. Drews jumped in here. SWAC needed FAMU. Anthony Johnson, FAMU needed the SWAC to hopefully help their budget. Chad Cooper says, well, he's giving some kudos. I appreciate that, Chad. PV for winning the Commissioner's Cup. So give him a shout out there. Mm-hmm. Karen, Tuskegee and Clark Atlanta are here, no doubt about it. SIAC in the house, founding members of the SIAC. A lot of history there, boy. Lonnie Shaw gets in the mix. Aggies, they're going to say something. FAMU is always in need, with the exception of the referees and officials.
Doc,
here's the thing, Lonnie. They got scoreboard on you. You can't take that away. They got scoreboard on you.
Oh, Doc, this is going to be fun. Go ahead, D.
Doc Chuck, let me tell you like this, man. Take it how you want to take it, say it how you want to say it, play it how you want to play it. New Edition was fine without Johnny Gill. Johnny Gill comes to New Edition, and more people know about Johnny Gill from him. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Gill couldn't sing. I'm not saying he wasn't a hell of an entertainer. But when he joined New Edition, and New Edition was doing fine.
Oh, man, I've heard it all. We have made the R&B connection to the SWAC. Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. New Edition.
So I want to welcome Johnny Gill, FAMU, to New Edition. And we're going to get you out front as best we can.
Yeah, that first week is simple,
this still Ralph Group, though.
You're going to welcome to the SWAC the right way, huh? It's still Ralph. Oh, this A.D. Drew said FAMU opened the Florida recruiting area Now the SWAC has a chance to get the best from Texas to Florida now, no doubt about it. I'm going to let you come in here behind the scene for a little bit. I can't let a family person not get a piece of this. So I'm going to bring him in there, then he can go back. So I'm going to let him have a couple of words. It wouldn't be fair if we didn't at least get a perspective of family, especially with this big game here. So I see you typed in a little bit, but you had a chance. Do you have any remarks you want to say before you go back behind the screen? I want to give you a little chance to get a plug in there.
Well, I like that hip hop analogy that Neely just came up there with everybody, and it was so far out for left field. I don't even have a comeback to get that one, But let's take this is the best I can say. Let's take Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was good, So Kevin Durant joined a winning team and made a winning team even better.
Made him
coming over to Golden State. FAMU is already good. Now they've joined a winning team. And notice, has Golden State won since Kevin Durant left?
Got to put an asterisk by that, AD.
Come on now,
it
doesn't matter.
Injury
Facts are facts. I don't need. Look, this is not 62. This is not 61 home runs in 162 games. We don't need any asterisks.
Women,
AD, let me tell you something, brother. I was with you. Great analogy, except when you got that part about them losing since he left, because we know that's special. But I will say this, man. I want to echo something that Doc read. This is certainly advantageous for the SWAC as a whole. And you touched on it, AD, in your comment as it relates to recruiting. And now that schools as far away as Houston get to showcase what they have to offer when they go play in Florida and play teams from Florida and vice versa, it just totally expands the footprint of Southwestern Athletic Conference recruiting from all the way to the far reaches of Texas over in El Paso to now up and beyond Washington, D.C. in that MEAC footprint. So it is certainly a win for the SWAC as a whole when it comes to our exposure, our brand management, and getting that brand in front of people who've never experienced it before. So it's a win-win. So I'm going to go with Chuck on the whole push concept.
Man, I like this. This lecture lab, we getting into it. Let's take a quick break. This is Dr. Ville inside the HBC Sports Lab. Hold those thoughts. We're going to come back. We're going to read a couple of more comments out there. Ricky Burton got some good ones. They're chiming in. So we're going to make sure we get those comments. We're going to let Charles come back. He has another push that he wants to say, and then we'll chime in. And then I have a follow-up question. So we're going to tag this on just a little bit. People are into it. It's interesting. Dr. Ville's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry.
This is Dr. Cavill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Sitting in for Mike Washington is none other than Neely, and he brought the fire with the R&B hip-hop matchup. And then A.D. Drew comes in here and drops a sporting analogy. Boy, I tell you, man, that's some good stuff. Let me go back to those lab listeners out here bringing it hard and heavy. Rick Bird says, SWAC didn't need FAMU, but we definitely wanted them. I like that. Nice job there. Karen just said that ain't enough. Get Tennessee State in the SWAC, then they need. So she says, who is 14? If you ask me who is 14, if you do find a way to get Tennessee State, I want Clark Atlanta. I want the Atlanta market. Pure business. We'll talk about that a little later. Brother Byron Garthier, alpha man out there. HBCU fans will rep their own for sure, and we brag differently. I think there's somebody talking about FAMU. Just something tells me something, brag about it, and they say it BRGG for those that don't know.
2 G's.
AD, Alcorn State and Southern Alabama A&M have always recruited in Florida. Carlos Brown bringing in here, big time Southern guy, so you know what he thinks about FAMU. Something about them colors he will always tell you. But Willie Alex Hines says, good evening, everybody. CIAA in the house. Much love to the CIAA. Yes, yes. SIAC in the house. CIAA in the house. MEAC in the house. Didn't need Johnny. That's a good one. Lonnie with FAMU taking the officials with them. FAMU and the SWAC needed each other. Willie says, good point. Karen Griffin brings in one of those Alabama schools up from the FCS. Good comments coming in. They're loving your Durant comment, follow-up, good stuff, good stuff. With that, let me ask you this technical. Let's go a little deeper into this for your perspective. And then I'm going to let you sew it in. But before I ask this question, Charles, I know you wanted to take another spin and take out that. Put that on the table now for the people.
Sure, because I wanted to kind of take a look at the regionality of the fan bases. And when you take a look at Florida A&M coming to the SWAC, I kind of, when I first heard about it, I kind of thought about, how the recruiting landscape, but, you take a team like a Florida State, which is they're in Tallahassee, are they looked at different being in the ACC versus being in the SEC? So I think there's some of that going on with Florida A&M as well, in terms of they open up their borders even more with regards to brand awareness coming to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, as opposed to being in the MEAC. So I was curious in terms of the regionality of Florida A&M joining the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And Doc, let me say this, Bethune-Cookman, I can't forget about Bethune-Cookman because from a football standpoint, they have been taking numbers in the SWAC. So I certainly cannot forget what Bethune-Cookman is bringing to the Southwestern Athletic Conference as well.
Can I make a correction to you, Chuck? You said from a football standpoint, you must forgot about basketball and baseball.
But, exactly. No, basketball and baseball as well.
And being on the other end of that rivalry, I can tell you all about it.
Yeah, let me not limit it to football, because Bethune-Cookman is bringing a tremendous baseball team, women's basketball. They've done their thing over there in the MEAC. So they're bringing their own cachet as well.
Well, let me put this pin on him before we do it. One thing, Lonnie, is just he's having a ball. FAMU is needed for the Celebration Bowl trophy. Just maybe they'll get it in the SWAC now that the Aggies are gone. I said, that's cold. That's cold. We did great. He got us a trophy at least the one time. Man, my goodness. He just has that memory. Since A&T didn't make it that year, he don't even count North Carolina Central. Lonnie is off the chain today. With that, seriously, I want you to think about this, though. SWAC expands in 1999. Big deal. I think not necessarily of the team, and this is not to say anything negative about UAPB. Obviously, they were previous in the conference as Arkansas AM and N, AM, AN and M, as they would say, I should say correctly, and Alabama A&M, obviously a strong power at the SIC. But the biggest thing to me that a lot of people really were focused on at that time was the championship game and how big that really changed things. And now it's played out, it's become significant and really huge. And Charles said this one time when it looked like it was going away, he said, there's people that really for 2 decades, literally their young adult life, that grew up with the SWAC and expecting a championship game. That blew me away in regards to understanding culture and how it changes. But this is the point that I wanted to make. You talk about history. I think that this is the biggest expansion of the SWAC in terms of bringing in significant brands, or what would be significant brands, since 1958. When Grambling and Jackson came in as a pair, public schools that were together for, say, 10 years, obviously they played previous to that, coming from the Midwestern Athletic Conference. Prairie View, as a founding member of public school, was already in the conference. Southern, that would become a dynamic rival to both of those institutions, was in the conference, obviously back since the 30s. But when you talk about that seismic shift of what we know about significant brands, think about that for a minute. And I want everybody to chime in from a business culture perspective. I will let you take this, take some of our bragging rights down and consider that in terms of the magnitude of expansion. What are your thoughts of digging that far back in the history of what would come and what we understand the SWAC in 1958, bringing in Jackson State and Grambling to what was already a well-documented power conference of the SWAC, and what it did for the next 40, 50 years? What do you imagine how that could be the case with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman coming in with the significant brands, as we're talking about, taking SWAC to the next level with a great commissioner at the head, understanding all the intangibles about streaming, all the media outlets that are dedicated to sports with HBCUsports.com, HBCU Game Day, BCSN, with the streaming networks, what we do, what Neely's doing with the pregame, which I think is going to set everybody afire. Don't be surprised if other institutions start coming out with pregame shows in the near future. You talking about changing the dynamics of what's going on, and then you add on Coach Prime at Jackson State in that mega star with the collection of these brand morphosis, as I like to talk about that business perspective, as I dropped on your all time, is it's the combination of significant brands coming together that metamorphoses and takes things off the stratosphere that people don't really quite understand and really understand when you talk about the bigness of that. But think about that for a minute. I want to get everybody's thoughts on that real quick. 1958. Does that resonate with you now that I bring it to your attention? Starting with you, Charles.
Definitely. You take a look at 1958 with Jackson State and Grambling coming into the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I make this argument with regards to Jackson State football. This is the dawning or the birth, really, of significant Jackson State football. When you talk about 1958, 1959, this is toward the tail end of the Big John Merritt tenure at Jackson State. But the next 2 or 3 years, Jackson State football takes off, and it becomes the Jackson State football that we've come to know it as, this winning brand. I can definitely make the same parallel with regards to Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M coming into the SWAC. I mean, I think we're at the dawning of what could be like you said, a paradigm shift with regards to the cultural aspect, the business aspect of these historic brands joining this historic conference. This is, really exciting times, and it harkens back to 1958, 1959. That's a great analogy to bring Jackson State and Grambling back into where we are now.
No doubt about it. With that, Neely, I know you're a historian, and a lot of things you all do on the pregame show harkens to connecting the history of Jackson State present and the importance of how that really elevates Jackson State and that brand awareness to unheightened proportions that a lot of people recognize about the power of Jackson State, including others as well. But particularly when you think about that, how does 1958 resonate with you in connection to what we're seeing now in 2021?
Well, it resonates deep. I think you make a profound point and historic argument for that. Centuries ago, it was said, "Go west, young man." And if you think about 1847, 1848, and the significance that had to 1849 when gold was found at Sutter's Mill, the people who were already there skyrocketed. Well, as we expand this footprint now, similar to that 58 to the late 90s model, the next, and Chuck touched on it, it was those immediate years after that you saw Jackson State and Grambling flourish by joining this conference. Well, now we have this footprint again from West Texas all the way to the DC metro area. And one thing we have to keep in mind, Doc, I know we are arrogant people in our HBCU culture, particularly our individual schools. And I believe everybody and their mama has heard of Jackson State University, but the truth is they haven't. And now when you enter these other markets and you get your brand recognition there, it's a time to introduce yourself. And so again, go West, young man. We're going to be playing games in Florida on a regular basis. We're going to be playing games. When I say we, not just Jackson State, but schools like UAPB, schools in Texas, schools in Alabama will now be showcasing their institutions further east. We know how it is growing up. Every young man, young woman wants to leave home, but you want to keep some kind of cultural identity. So the next place to go is, well, I grew up in Tallahassee. I don't really want to go to FAMU, but now I'm exposed to Texas Southern. Now I'm exposed to Southern Baton Rouge. I'm exposed to Jackson State. So I think you're going to have that same incremental but exponential growth in the next 5 to 10 years of the SWAC. And there are two more metro areas, and you touched on it during the break, Doc, that we got to get on. Just think when the SWAC gets to Metro Atlanta, when the SWAC gets to Metro Nashville. When you talk about brand, iconic, now you're reaching into Ohio. You're reaching up into Michigan. Now you're reaching all these other aspects of all the people who come to and from Atlanta, that is not just a host of games, that you got a Clark Atlanta or someone like that in the SWAC now. It is phenomenal what this become. And you said it, we have a phenomenal commissioner who gets it. He gets marketing, he gets media rights, he gets exposure. Now you have the internet at your hand. It used to be a time that you had to beg people to show your stuff. Well, now you can show your stuff on own to millions of people, just have enough bandwidth. So this is going to be a phenomenal growth. I know tongue in cheek, you know, AD is my Johnny Gill with FAMU, but New Edition is going to sell a hell of a lot of records when we do this thing together.
Yeah, point well taken. Nice way to touch back on it. AD, coming back to you from that framework, again, putting that spin on it, when you look at 1958, I know you're a historian in a lot of ways, but seriously, what does that and how does that resonate with you when you talk about looking at the historic perspective of the last time you had significant brands attached in a way that mattered as much as it does now with bringing in FAMU, the question we have, but also including bringing in the rivalry of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. Talk about that a little bit in terms of why you see that as important.
When Neely just brought up a great point, talk about expanding into the Tennessee, Ohio, Kentucky market by bringing a Tennessee State in. And my last couple of years of high school, I thought I was going to go to Tennessee State until I ultimately made the decision to go to Florida A&M University, with me being from Missouri. That was the Midwest HBCU. I never wanted to attend Lincoln in Missouri. I didn't want to attend Harris Stowe, which was there in my hometown. Never really considered Kentucky State. Tennessee State was always my goal. So you bring up a great point right there, Neely. That's number one. Number two, we're talking about the 1958. Well, we talk about the Midwest Conference. Let's pray and hope that FAMU and Bethune coming to the SWAC is not at the expense of losing a conference like we did back during that time. And we all know which conference that we're talking about that we don't want to potentially lose. Two more points. You talk about bringing a Florida A&M University, no disrespect to Bethune, but you are bringing the second winningest HBCU to a conference that already has football tradition. FAMU only number 2 to wins to Tuskegee, who's approaching number 700 all time. So just the fact that you're bringing the second winningest football program to a conference that featured Eddie Robinson and all the other legendary coaches, it does nothing but builds both of their brands and make both of their brands better. And last but not least, Southland Conference. There's rumors out there that the Southland Conference is trying to poach members from the SWAC away. I don't understand why a SWAC blue blood or SWAC team would even consider leaving this culture, this tradition, this setting to go to a conference such as the Southland. I mean, the SWAC's been number one in attendance 42 out of 43 years. You're gonna fill up your stadiums. You're gonna make your money in football. Now, some of the other sports, we all know they may not be fully funded, they're lacking, but this can help us get on the road for getting those other, especially those non-rev sports, to the level that we want to see in our lower mid-major Division I conference.
Well, since you put the ugly gorilla in the room, let's take a quick break and then I'll give a framework where I can quickly kill that noise in terms of that out there. That's somebody, a conference, a commissioner putting that out there on purpose. So this is Dr. Ville's Inside the HBC Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, as well as A.D. Drew, giving us some updates in terms of taking a little spiel for HBCU game day and Steve Gaither as he brought us out, the SWAC family who needed that. We've taken it in a whole different direction. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break and we'll have some other commentary for you to review and think about as we come back right after this quick break.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Yes, we're laughing. The breaks are just hilarious. I'm going to let Neely take it away because he has some comments in the break that he has to share. It can't stay off the air. Go ahead, Neely.
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Doc. I wanted to acknowledge the AD and his presentation when he led in with SWAC's, FAMU's mini championships and joining our iconic and winning brands that it has merit because Johnny Gill, once again, that analogy, Johnny Gill was a Grammy-nominated singer before joining New Edition, but we all know who was selling the most records before he got there. So I appreciate the voice that you guys are bringing, but once again, New Edition was New Edition before Johnny Gill got there.
Kevin Durant had won an MVP before joining Golden State, but the championships came with Golden State. So
yeah,
they beat each other.
Yeah, they did have the historic iconic season, none other. So yeah, no doubt about it, man. This is why we do what we do.
Don't forget, Golden State won 73 games and lost without KD.
Facts.
That's facts. Facts. Stubborn things. Facts. Men's lie, women's lie.
Numbers don't.
Numbers don't.
Facts are such stubborn things. Stubborn things they are. With that being said, we parked it on a spot that you brought in Southland. And I think there's multiple ways to look at that. Let me first talk about this before I go in on the Southland and bring this sledgehammer and kill that for everybody. Don't get excited about a little bit of nothing and talk when you have a commissioner, Tom of the Southland, trying to save his job literally because those folks that are remaining in the Southland that know it's dying are fish grease mad in terms of what that is doing, particularly McNeese State over there, when the big boys, Texas boys in this case, flew the coop and went to the WAC and let them out there stubbornly. And then, not to mention it, you got Central Arkansas said, we not staying with you other either, going to Sun Atlantic. Sun Atlantic only has 5 schools, so they're not done. So those individuals in the Southland that are thinking they're going to take 4 HBCUs, including Texas, you're sadly mistaken. All that is just misinformation purposely put out there to try to put out discord within the SWAC that is the big boy of the block in this whole region with 12 institutions that are paying out money to the institutions that Southland is not doing. So don't get confused with these institutions that win some games in terms of when there's head-to-head matchups based on the funding mechanism. You all that are confused out there that think just because a school or a conference has historically white colleges that they are financially better off than at historically Black colleges. It may not have paid off in the wins, but there's a whole different cultural dynamic at play at that. But I'm not going to let you misconstrue the facts in terms of what financially is taking place. The money associated with the Celebration Bowl, $1 million there to pay out for when you go to a basketball championship, the NCAA, that is paid out, that is not paid out in the Southland. And don't get surprised because OVC is out there with athletic commissioner that is concerned about what's going on in OVC to the point that some people believe that she was brought to tears in terms of the way the Sun Atlantic went after some of her institutions. So Southland, don't be surprised if they're going out the OVC or the Southland schools look at the OVC because now they're at 7. So don't forget that when you had Jacksonville State lead as well as Eastern Kentucky and scared to death that somebody else in this league because we talking about Tennessee State. So it's not done with. And even for the Big South that everybody thought was the big boy on the block, they lost 2 schools, 2 of their bigger branded schools in terms of those that recently had success in football with Kennesaw State, North Alabama, as they're transitioning. They have went to the Sun Atlantic, as I told you already, with 5 schools, the WAC with 5 schools. You have Southland with their 6. You also have, in terms of what's going on there, all around that component of it, as well as with the other schools in terms of the Big South. So just think about that when we talk about all those components going on. So I wanted to bring that to your attention in terms of just killing all that noise out there. With that being said, let's get into some of this other news that's taking place that you want to discuss. So let me go to you, Charles. What's on your mind in terms of some of the other HBCU news that's out there?
Well, I think some of the other news that's out there, and this is sort of a collective thing around the Southwestern Athletic Conference, around the MEAC as well, is transfer portal in terms of what has been going on with regards to student athletes leaving their current universities, going elsewhere, as well as student athletes coming into the Southwestern Athletic Conference and the MEAC. So I think that has been a collective buzz that has been going on with regards to HBCU football. We saw Jackson State land a young man yesterday that it generated some buzz across social media. So I think the transfer portal has been one of those things that everybody is kind of want to get into.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's stick right there, Neely. What are your thoughts on this transfer portal? Which side are you on and how that is just generally affecting the landscape? Where are you in terms of
I think it's a good thing. I think it's healthy for the brand. I think it's healthy for the attention and notoriety that it brings. I think that predominantly African-American young men playing football, for them to have a freedom of choice is a good thing. It should be applauded. I think the fan base has some growing up to do as it relates to our knowledge and education about the transfer portal, the impact that COVID had on it this year, rule changes going over the years that give student athletes this ability to switch schools, if you will. But the biggest thing that we have to understand about this, Doc, it doesn't mean something's wrong. You know, so many times when we hear somebody's leaving somewhere, we think it's under duress. Hey, well, you know, I heard AD left this job. Well, that doesn't mean something bad happened. You know, we have to get out of this frame of everything has to become born out of a negative situation. So when you see a young person leave, and I know Jackson State gets a lot of attention in this time frame because of Coach Prime, somebody's leaving Coach Prime, but a lot of guys are going for what they perceive or believe to be better opportunities. Better opportunities could just be closer to home, could be more playing time, could be streets with less potholes, because we got some potholes in Jackson. You don't know what the deep dive is that's causing somebody to want to transfer schools. But by the same token, when you celebrate a transfer coming in, we have to understand that portal door swings both ways. So I don't think it's a negative thing. I think this is the new era and here to stay for college football. Just like those of us who were NFL fans, free agency time is a time of attention, jubilation, anticipation. It's going to be the same thing for years to come with this transfer portal. You're going to look at coaches being able to build teams for these particular season or seasons, because academic scholarships are annual. And now you're getting some guys that, hey, well, we're missing this piece and he's in the portal, we can grab him, versus being on the 11th graders or 12th graders couch trying to talk to mama. You have another way to recruit now and to expose your program and attract talent. I don't think is a negative. I think it's just new to our fan base, and we have some growing up to do as far as our information, and we'll understand that transfer portal is a healthy thing. It's not a death knell or a negative situation to a HBCU, nor does it mean something is wrong in the coach's locker room.
Man, I knew it was something about Neely that I really appreciated in life when we first met. The man is just simply brilliant. Let's just put it out there. You can welcome to my sports study programs in the lab anytime. Anybody that has the mindset of this, he needs access to repeat as many things he talk about as possible. Yeah, the doc said it, just giving it to you. The dean of HBCU sports, when I put the blessing on you, I'm just letting you know it is what it is. This is Dr.
I receive it, brother.
Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We'll be right back after our last break. We'll come back in, and I'm going to set this up for AD perfectly. I'm not going to necessarily continue on the portal, but I want to talk about Talladega College and reviving football. I want to get his insights and thoughts on that, because I know he can bring it. Let's stick with us as we go to this quick week. Our last break. We'll be right back.
My God. It's another sad day in America. Painful to be introduced to George Floyd during his last breath with a cop's knee on his neck. On his neck. He deserves so much more. So much more.
How many black lives have to be taken before something is done?
We are not a threat. I am shaking as I type. This has got to stop.
We are sick of it.
We need conviction. I just want us all to live. Death will not stop until the powers that be are finally held accountable.
Don't look away from the truth until every one of us are free from white supremacy.
The world stands with you.
Criminalizing and killing of black and brown bodies is not new. It's as old as America. It's just getting filmed more.
Do you know what it feels like to be hunted? To have a new hashtag for a dead black person every single day? How does one plan a life if they aren't sure they will have a life to plan? Trayvon,
Armstrong, Deborah Dance,
Megan
Michelle Lee
George Floyd. His name was George Floyd. Say his name. Say his name.
George Floyd. Say his name.
Say their names. Once again, and always, we fight for justice. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Rest in power, beautiful. You didn't deserve this.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside HBC Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We have Neely sitting in for Mike Washington, excuse me. Charles Bishop is right here. AD Drew giving us some love as well, as we had a little fun with that FAMU Jackson State, as that's the big game that kicks off that first weekend in a lot of ways. And this is coming from a Texas Southern Prairie View rivalry on their Labor Day weekend, but I call it as I see it. This is the professor. I want to give some love to Fred with it. You all know I have that encyclopedia, so I'm going to give some love. That's just what we do around here. You got to know your history. Get the encyclopedia along with the other history that you already know. Make sure you keep up with it. Tune in for the love in terms of the pregame show, AD, in terms of Brian, AD with the sports rap. Continue to show us love. We appreciate it. But Whitting said, we must tell our story. So we know that history. I was threatened by a FAMU fan alumni who argued that Jake Gaither was the first Black coach to win 200 games. I took the morbid route by explaining that Coach Cleve Abbott at Tuskegee died in 1955 with 201 wins, and Jake Gaither did not win his 200th game until 1969. No doubt about it. You got to know your history. What makes it proud history is the fact that you can bounce off the history off each other. Remember, history is only what it is in terms of how it grows, and it is compounded against the other great iconic history. So well said in terms of dropping that down, but thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to call Professor Bishop on that one as you brought some knowledge there. AD Drew, I know you wanted to get in here, and I asked you about Talladega, but you wanted to talk about the portal and provide a little bit of information on Talladega as well. Go, take it away.
Yeah, just quickly on the portal, you know, I've got a lot of mixed emotions about the portal. I understand the microwave society and making the best business decision for you as a student athlete and everything like that. But sometimes, you know how they say the grass is greener on the other side of the street, but then you go over there on the other side of the street, you find out that it's AstroTurf. It looks greener, but it's artificial. So, you know, I think we've got a lot of kids who go into that portal with that happening. There are more kids in the portal than there are spots available right now. And I agree with everything that Neely said, but from a student athlete point of view, sometimes they're not going in for all of the right reasons and with the right outcomes, the proper outcomes on the other side, because you don't get a chance to build those relationships with coach. Everybody expects to play as a freshman now. You know, back when we came to school, you knew you weren't gonna hit the field to your junior year, but you were fine with that, refining your skill. So now as a college coach, not only are you having to recruit a player in, but you got to continue to recruit them while they're on campus. The fallout from the portal is probably going to be that high school senior. Why would I go and sit on mom and them couch when I just go nab up somebody out the portal a la free agency? You know, once you've gone away to school and signed that letter of intent, I don't have to deal with your mama. I don't have to deal with your daddy. I deal with you. Now, you know, that high school senior, I've got to convince mom and daddy that you come to me. I think ultimately junior colleges may be the beneficiary of the transfer portal, with these high school athletes not having an opportunity to go to four-year schools initially because the spots won't be available.
Well, Karen Griffin certainly like what you said. She said, speak AD. So,
but I think,
go ahead, Charles. What you had?
I think the market will separate that out. I mean, if bigger, stronger, faster is sitting on mama and dad's couch as 11, 12 grader, guess who gets pushed out? So the market will separate out, you know, the better athletes. So I understand coaches when I hear that. That's a coach's perspective, because I think to your point, AD, there's going to be lack of trust for coach and player because you are going to have to re-recruit every year.
No problem, and I agree with that. And AD was previously a coach, and once a coach, always a coach.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It sounds like you were shaking your head. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, I broad stroke, I concur with AD's counterpoint, if you will. I understand it's just where he's coming from, but some of it just has a flip side of the coin. True enough, the number of people in the portal exceed the number of available slots. But by that same token, the number of people playing college athletic vastly exceed the number of professional spots in that sport. Sometimes we have to allow people to make decisions, make wrong decisions. It's called growing up. And I'm sure some of these folks who enter the portal before they sit down with coaches, and coaches being coaches, AD, do everything they can to persuade this young person, no, you should stay here. But the freedom of choice in this young person's life, it is their decision. So things that we can do to help them make that best decision, I don't think is a negative. And my final thing to it, Doc, when AD says that, you know, back when we played, you know, you knew you weren't going to see the field till you were a junior. Well, guess what else? The coach knew you couldn't go nowhere. Now, one thing I love to say, Doc, it's an economic concept. Competition benefits the consumer. I guarantee you the best people will play now because the best people will have the freedom of choice to go somewhere else. So coaches got to work harder. That's just it's just a byproduct of this new system. I still don't think it's a negative thing to go back where we started. When you hear a player is leaving a school, it doesn't mean something bad happened.
I'm across the heart on that one. He went to church again. And as I like to say it, and you bring it home with this, is it's interesting we have this, well, I'm gonna go ahead and put it there. We have this slave mentality as if your young black body needs to be parented. Stop that. It's one of the few sports in terms of football and basketball, which has the 60-70% range of African-American men, young boy, black bodies that we feel we can monetize from the standpoint that we are parental in terms of their domain. And that is a sickness that we have even quite trope in terms of that looks like. We have to get out of that. Coaches have the ability to monetize. So if anybody has a responsibility, they get paid to figure it out. Let them figure it out. They get a check to do that. These individuals don't. And we live in, suppose, a capitalistic society that says and sells to everybody else to have the rights to make wrong decisions. But all of a sudden, when it comes to a black body at the college level, all of a sudden, mainly these European and white coaches have their best interests at hand. We know that's not true. Let's not fall into it. Give these individuals the freedom, as you said, Neely, to make that mistake. We allow everybody else to make that mistake. Stop thinking that we have supposedly their best interests and we're going to do them right when you haven't done them right when you brought them in the first place, coming out of economic situations in schools that you never prepared them for to be successful. So don't miss me with all of a sudden now that you want to do right. Nah, we out of that. We're going to take it to the next one. Enough of that. I closed it. I dropped the mic. I called it. I claimed it. Fan Dillard ranked #1 in final APGA poll for MEAC Sports. Just wanted to give a little love for FAMU in terms of that. Make a marker declares for the NBA draft. HBCU game, they put that out there. I think that was big news in terms of how he comes in. I'm glad he made the decision he did. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But just like we said, that's life. The point is he started a conversation, and I hope he does well in the camps, and I hope he gets drafted well because it makes a statement in the overall that the options are there in regards to what that looks like.
And he can come back because he did not hire an agent if things don't look good for him.
Great dime to put on that as well. Alabama A&M, and I think you teased this out a little bit, Charles, but I want to take a deeper dive. Alabama A&M hires Winston-Salem State's coach Boulware. I think that's a big hire in regards to his track record, particularly solid as a head coach. Not quite what Connor Manning was able to do just prior to it, but that was highest of heights. But simply in terms of what he did as a defensive coordinator, which he's going to be on the defensive side and line play, I'm like, wow, that's a significant hit. Take it away. Let me go to each one of y'all. Let's just go around the lab, if you would, and mix it up one last time. Give me your final thoughts as we start to close out the show. I'm going to start with you, AD. What are your thoughts in terms of the landscape of where we at now?
Well, we tried to bring it up, but I digressed off of it. Talladega starting up football. You know, I caught wind of this a couple of years ago that they may be considering starting football at Talladega College. Talladega College, an original member of the SIAC, in which they play football. I even think they may have an SIAC conference championship back there if I do my research. Don't quote me on that though, but I know they were pretty good when they were good. Notice the move by Talladega. They left the GCAC, went to the Southern States, which has more sports. Maybe, just maybe, Talladega is setting themselves up geographically. You know, Miles is right up the road. Tuskegee is right up the road from them. Clark, Morehouse, just throwing it out there. Y'all know which conference that is. I'm just giving you something to think about.
Now, you know what? Give Talladega football team to go with that band. I want to see that.
Good deal. Good deal. Any other thoughts you have, Charles? Good comment.
I mean, I'm looking forward to North Carolina A&T track team in terms of what they'll be able to do. Hopefully in Eugene, looking for some Olympic representation. Hopefully from get some great times from some of their athletes, and hopefully we continue that long history of HBCU representation into the Olympics. So rooting hard for the Aggies in that regards.
We marked it up, so mark your calendars. Make sure you're here Tuesday. We'll have the head coach come in to talk about the program on Tuesday. We've landed that. So we have not forgot about the Aggies as they're getting it done, both men's and women's at the national level. We're going to show them a little love, bring the coach in here and have some dialogue about what he plans to do at the national level. We're going to let Neely, since he been able to drop all these dimes, we're going to end it with him in terms of his thoughts. He wanted for the day in terms of the lab representatives as a guest, bringing it hard and heavy. What are your final thoughts, Neely?
Just one final thought. First of all, thank you for having me on. And I surely appreciate this partnership and working with you guys. Is a wonderful program. Parting shot, I want to focus on baseball for a second. Historic run by the Jackson State Tiger baseball team. Came up short in that SWAC championship, recognized as an HBCU national champion. But everybody thinks, though, that when you win one, you're going right back. But July 1st, Bethune-Cookman and FAMU joined the SWAC. What I want to make everybody aware of, to stay poised, because the geographic center for baseball may be leaving Baton Rouge and Jackson, Mississippi, and moving to the east, because Florida is huge for baseball. You can take the other SWAC states combined, and it may not add up to what the fan base for baseball does in that state. So don't look for Southern and Jackson State to have it so easy to get back there in the years to come with Bethune-Cookman and FAMU now joining the SWAC.
Great point. Well said. We've said it a couple of times, and I think you just put a final dime on it. A lot of people looked at the West in terms of the depthness in terms of what they were doing for baseball, but I think it's just shifted to the East. When you talk about FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, it should be fun to follow in terms of what that does. That'll do it for us. Great commentary. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU Sports. From inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Guest today was none other than Neely, hanging in for Mike Washington. And AD must have got into the talk when we talked about Jackson and FAMU, doing an excellent job behind the camera. We let him sneak out and give us some updates and did a great job for us. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Be sure to join us next week. We're going to continue to bring it hard and heavy. And like I said, we're going to have the coach for the Aggies, a track and field team that's going national. We'll give you a little insight there. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill. That's DrKenyattaCavill, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Inside the Sports Lab 1, that's on Twitter. Facebook is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon. Go with it, Charles.
Of course.
Neely.
Lecture.
AD.
Dismissed.
2 in a row, man. Neely, I thought she was going to